fans, welcome to episode number 64 of the JetStream podcast. I am Travis Rubinik. Today is February 22nd. We are Joe Clark and Neil Noonan, and joining us today is, well, I want to make sure I get all of your titles correct here, Garrett. I think you're still technically a managing editor for Arctic Ice. You are, I guess, a co-founder slash big guy behind the Hockey Graphs website. You have your own podcast, Hockey Graphs. You are pretty much the guy for JetsNation.ca now. You've wrote for the Free Press. You've done a bazillion things. What am I missing? I know you've done a bunch of other stuff.
Hockey Prospectus. And that's
yes, that's it. Also with Hockey Prospectus is Garret Hohl. I'm sure most of you listening are either already following Garret or on Twitter, or have at least seen him retweeted at some point, because I retweet him all the time.
Or heard him on the podcast before.
Or yes, heard him on the podcast
before. Muted him.
Yeah, or muted him.
Yeah.
So welcome, Garret. We brought Garret on today, well, personally, because we disagreed about something, and I wanted to talk about it on here rather than try to tweet back and forth for God knows how long. And also because Garrett's, well, just a smart guy, so it's always good to have smart people on here to fill the non-smart
My
topics we
little
talk about.
nerdlings.
So, what was that, Garrett?
Sorry, I said I got U-Trick too.
So yeah, we're going to talk about obviously the Perreault injury. That'll be our big thing to start things off, and how the Jets are going to respond to that, even though they've lost to one really iffy team and one that's right in the brink of the playoffs. So Garrett's got a cat with him. Garrett's a cat guy, apparently. We got a little ESPN article to talk about at one point. We got our regular stuff. I think Garrett might even join us for the spelling bee today, which will be very interesting.
Special guest on the spelling bee.
But yeah, first we're going to get to Matthew Perreault out for probably the rest of the regular season, assuming the Jets have somewhat narrowed in their ability to guess when players are coming back, because they've been less than accurate on that basis in the past. So the general consensus when Perreault got hurt was that things are not going to go well for the Jets. The Jets needed to do something. World is going to cave in on itself. Everything's going to start falling apart. And I guess you could say that these last two games in results fashion have been proof of that. They lost to Washington. Okay. I know Garrett's going to respond to that nicely in a couple seconds. They lost to Toronto last night, which thanks a lot, Jets, because at least you're trying to tank right now, and you're just ruining everything, Mark Stewart. So Garrett, the first question I'm going to pose to you, just because I want to hear what you have to say about this right off the hop. Are the Jets boned right now? Like, are they in some serious trouble now that Perreault's hurt? Or from my perception, from what you've said to me, is that things aren't as bad as a lot of people think they are.
Well, I want to say one thing, and then I want to ask a question, to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
But to say, like, yeah, it sucks. I mean, Perreault is right now the fourth highest scorer per minute on the Jets. That sucks to lose. Yep. Perreault is the second highest possession player on the Jets. That sucks to lose. Historically, he's actually been better than what he's even been so far on the Jets. That sucks to lose. Like, there's no way around it. Like, the Jets, you know, just looking at, like, strict probabilities, whatever, or just looking at it, like, on paper, you know, losing a good player sucks no matter what. There's no way you can go around it that it doesn't make things worse than what it would have been if you had him.
Okay. Now,
to answer your question with a question, you said those two games kind of prove it. I want to ask you, how does the absence of Perreault increase the Jets' penalty minutes and also wrecks the goaltender's save percentage? Because that's pretty much mostly why the Jets lost.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that aspect. Like, I'm not going to say that it proves that things are worse.
No. I mean,
I think the general consensus of people right now are saying that, is that, oh, Perreault's gone, so the Jets are going to lose. I think a lot of the general fan consensus right now is Chevy's got to do something to replace Perreault, because Perreault leaving means they're going to lose. And I know from, well, you telling me, for the most part, that the game against Washington, the Jets didn't play all that bad at 5-on-5. And
if you ignore the getting penalties, which is a bad thing to do on 5-on-5, so you can't say strictly that they played well, because I mean, all those were all like slashing and tripping penalties, which in the offensive zone, which is just stupid. So it's not like they're being great, but they outchance Washington. They've outchanced every team. Like since that game where, remember that game in Dallas where the team just played terrible and Pavlik stole it?
Yeah.
Since that game, they've only been out Corsied on 5-on-5 twice against Chicago and once against Pittsburgh, and then this Toronto game.
It's fair enough. The Toronto game is kind of the one that scares me a little bit, because the Leafs are really not good.
Out Corsied by Toronto is never a fun thing to put on your resume.
And it was, the thing is, they kind of made things worse because they made Bufflin play forward instead of defense.
Yeah.
And I mean, losing a guy who's been like a 56% possession player to trade him for a second, third line 48% possession player. Like, I don't think people realize that Bufflin is above average, close to elite defenseman for a top pair defenseman. I think most people kind of get that, even though some might say that's overrating him or not. Yeah. But I don't think people really realize how bad Bufflin has been as a forward. At 48%, that's like a third line average. And then his scoring numbers, which people think like, well, maybe his scoring is good. His scoring numbers are like comparable to Chris Thorburn per minute.
Good.
Lovely. See, but that's where I start getting a bit more of a concern, because if you're leaving, and I completely agree with you, I think Bufflin should stay as a defenseman, but the problem that I see then as a whole as the team is when you lose a guy like Perreault and you are starting to put Thorburn and Gagliardi on your third line. Like, I believe that was the going into the game lineup, and Party on your fourth line against Washington. I just think over an extended period of time, isn't that gonna just destroy your team? Like, I just think that when you have a third and a fourth line that are such a detriment, like the Jets' top six, even with these injuries, from what I understand, is a pretty solid top 10 in the league, if I'm not top 5 in the league depending on how you manipulate things, from what I've understood in the league possession wise with that top 6 unit. But I have trouble believing that when you start having that grouping for your bottom 6, where it's such a detriment, like I don't want to say this because I haven't really double checked. I probably should have. When your bottom 6 is probably playing around like a lottery pick level, isn't that really going to start dragging you down after a while? Like, isn't that just, unless you only play your top 6? But
I mean, it does have an impact. But the thing is, people kind of really over exaggerate the impact the bad lines play. I mean, look at the fourth line last night. They played 2.8 minutes of 5-on-5 time. Yeah, that's less than they should be, and that's gonna kind of wear on the top lines, as like they probably shouldn't have gone that heavy, but on the top 9. But people really over exaggerate the impact. Like recently, I tweeted out basically the spread in goal differentials that you get for a top 5% possession player on a certain line versus a bottom 5%.
Okay. And
put it this way, the impact of a second pair defenseman, like when you're comparing the best second pair defenseman to the worst second pair defenseman, the goal impact spread between those two is more than the second and third line combined.
Wow.
So, like, yeah, Perreault sucks because he's really, really good. He just sucks, but losing Perreault sucks because he's really good. But people kind of over-assume, like, the difference between having the best third line in the NHL and the worst third line in the NHL is about 10 goals over an 82-game season.
So at this point, you're looking at about
the Jets
5. Season
isn't 10 games.
Yeah.
So, and then you look at a fourth line, that's about 5 goals.
Okay.
So if the Jets went from a best to worst, that's 15 goals over 82 season. That sucks because, I mean, on average, that equals out to, you're looking at about 3 wins. And but
is that 3 wins? Is that 3 wins over the entire season, or 3 wins like
in
probably in this race per season? Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're more
so
than
when
halfway
you
through.
add the fact that it's way less than a season.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just doing the math now as we speak. That's why I was trying to like slow down.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, so you got 6 goal. So that's 6 points. And then crap, I did the wrong math. But anyways,
It happens.
this is why I don't use calculators. I usually use cells.
Good old Excel spreadsheets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love Excel.
So you're on average, if the Jets went from having the best third line to the worst third line and the best fourth line to the worst fourth line, over a 20-game spread, you expect the Jets' goal differential to be about 1.5 goals worse.
Wow.
And that's over like the entire.
That's what's left, basically. 20.
That's over the 20 remaining games
Yeah.
that the Jets have.
Okay, so
And going from a guy like Matthew Perreault, who's one of the better guys in his position that he's being played, going from him to not him is going to have a bigger effect.
Well, I'd probably say it's actually probably less than that because you think about it, it's not Carl Klingberg, the guy that they brought in, who's taking Perreault's minutes.
yeah,
It's-
that's true.
It's not like, well, yesterday unfortunately was Bufflin, but
Yeah.
if they were being wise about it, it would be Michael Frolik. Michael Frolik would go up to the second line. And on top of it, you could decrease it by giving the top lines a little bit tougher minutes than you did before. Not like extraordinarily so, but I mean, as you said, they're one of the better top 6 possession lines in the game right now. So they can take a heavier load and still be okay.
So basically,
And
what I'm kind of getting from most of this is it's never good when you lose a player like this. But even without the Jets even with the lack of forward depth the Jets have right now, it's something that if they're smart about it and maybe Paul Maurice is proactive and adjusts the way he's deploying guys, it's nothing that they shouldn't be able to overcome, assuming A, they don't take a bazillion stupid penalties, and B, their goaltending stops letting in 4 goals a game, pretty much.
Yeah, because we just looked at it there. I think I said goals, but I meant points. The loss of Matthew Perreault, if it makes the third and fourth line go from the best lines in the NHL to the worst lines as a third and fourth line, we're guessing the impact's going to be on average the Jets lose 1.5 points compared to what they would have otherwise.
Yeah.
Now, I also did recently what would happen if the Jets started taking, instead of how many penalty minutes per game that they normally do, and went to just league average. For the remaining 20 games, it would be about 3.5 points better. So just becoming more disciplined and going to league average amount of penalty minutes would be about 2 times the impact of losing Perreault.
Wow.
Well,
Puts
that
it
would
in
be lovely to
perspective.
fix.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, I was just looking into a few things, and I don't remember if you remember when Travis Yost wrote his article like early this year. I don't know if you even saw my tweets about this, but he wrote that article earlier this year, kind of praising the Jets' penalty killing and how strong it had been. I did a little bit of digging on that on either Thursday or Friday morning. And at that point in time when things were going so well, Slater and Mark Stewart were 2 guys that were on his list of guys that were killing some of the most penalties. They were on the bottom of the list, and they were also the worst penalty kill Corsi differential guys the Jets had. And since that time, they have sprung themselves to the highest minute usage guys on the penalty kill. So the highest defensive guy and highest forward being used on the PK. And they are still amongst the worst penalty killers the Jets have. So taking penalties is an issue. Killing them is a whole other one because I really think Pomo could probably optimize his deployments a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Stewart and Slater are not great options. I mean, I got angry as heck. Jets lost a game in overtime not too long ago where it was 4-4. They got a penalty, and who did they decide to put out as their one and only forward? Slater. I understand winning a face-off is important, but sorry,
Getting the puck out of your end is also important.
Yeah.
But yeah, having only one forward, if you're going to choose who that forward is, it shouldn't be Jim Slater.
No. Yeah, it's I think the thing that's still kind of, you know me, Garrett. You know I'm not one to laugh in the face of stats and things like that, and I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I understand the impacts and stuff like that. It's just I keep getting dragged into this terrifying factor of how they're going to approach it. I guess it's not necessarily I guess it's not necessarily me thinking that they're screwed regardless. I think it's just me being pessimistic in the fact that I've seen a lot of poor lineup decisions before, and I guess I'm just not optimistic enough about what they're going to do, that they're going to approach this the right way. And so like I feel like where the kind of disconnect is, because I know RB is all about right now kind of the, if they don't fix something they're not going to make, like, they're done if they don't fix this. And I think it's more of a, they're more finished and more in trouble if they don't address their current situation properly. If they don't optimize their usage, that's where the real problem lies. It's not necessarily the injuries, because in all honesty, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
In all honesty, it's one of those things where when the defensemen started going down, I think a lot of us were praising Paul Maurice on how he approached that. He moved Dustin Byfuglien back. He started putting, in my opinion, what were the right guys together, and he handled that well. I just haven't seen yet with the forwards him do that same kind of smart thing. And I think a solid chunk on that might be on Chevy, and that they haven't taken action yet, and there are other ways to do it. But I think Paul Maurice does have to take some responsibility for how, going off of what you've said alone, is how he's going to start utilizing and manipulating his guys. And like you said, start giving like we've seen Little and Wheeler play ridiculously hard minutes or difficult minutes in the past, and they've done well with it. So whether it's starting to put more of the weight back on them and adjusting things like that. But yeah, I think he's got to start taking this smart approach like he did when he lost his defenseman.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the numbers that I gave was like the possibilities. Like, what is, like, if they make the right moves, how will it be like? But that's, as you said, and I mean, yesterday was a great example. Well, I guess for the people who are listening to you 2 days ago, against Toronto was a perfect example that Dustin Byfuglien was a bad move out front. And I mean, it ended up exactly as I probably would have predicted. The top defensive line, Myers and Enstrom, didn't play that well. They were completely outshot because they were doing great as a second pair D, taking a little bit more offensive zone usage and being offensive zone specialists, while Dustin Byfuglien was being the Jets' defensive zone specialist. And it worked. Then all of a sudden they swapped Myers and Enstrom into the defensive zone, and it didn't work. The line that was mostly with them, Ladd, Little, and Wheeler, suffered because of it. And then on top of it, the Scheifele line just performed poorly because Byfuglien's not the greatest. He's a niche player when it comes to defense, or it comes to forward. Like, I think it was, which one of you was it yesterday? Last week said Byfuglien kind of gets lost as a forward.
I think that was me, Joe. Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's true. He does get. I think Justin Bourne did an article on it last summer where he took a couple screenshots of like one shift, and it was him as a forward, and he's in the defensive zone, and he's playing as a winger at one point. Then he's down low as a center about 10 seconds later, and then he's in like a defensive zone or defensive position like 10 seconds later. Like he gets lost. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it doesn't use. The only thing he can do is be a good net front presence guy. I mean, and if you're a team that's like where you're not relying on Byfuglien being the guy to create possession, like Jets are a top possession team, but they're a top possession team for the most part because they have guys like Dustin Byfuglien. But when you put him on forward, you don't have that push of play.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why it worked in Chicago. Chicago, they had an elite team, and putting him on Taves, putting him on Taves' line, I mean, it worked out great because Taves pushes the play fine, and Byfuglien just had to do what he had to do, get in front of Luongo's face.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. This is kind of an off-to-the-side question that I didn't even mention to you before, but you brought up Enstrom, and I'm just kind of curious as to what, if just briefly, you could give us what your thoughts have been on Enstrom this year. Because I know that obviously there's a whole lot of us that love Enstrom and think he's a great player, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying he's not. But to me, he seemed to have a bit of a step back here compared to what he usually is. And again, that might be effects of playing with Bogosian for most of the year and playing with Myers now, or maybe it's a combination of not playing with Byfuglien. But it seems like he's taken I'm not going to say a huge step back, but I just don't see him as the same driver of possession as he's been in before. Have you noticed anything different with him at all, or?
Visually, I haven't seen much. I mean, I don't think Bogosian and Enstrom were the best pair together.
Yeah.
When Enstrom and Byfuglien were together, Byfuglien was the puck mover for the most part, and Enstrom deferred most of the puck movement. It's really weird because you look at Buff, big guy, and you look at Enstrom, small guy, who skates well. You think Enstrom's the puck mover, and Byfuglien's the guy who's like breaks up the play and gets the puck.
Yeah.
But it was actually the opposite.
Yeah, that's true.
And when Enstrom was with Bogosian deferred all the puck movement. Like when I was tracking zone exits, it was like basically Bogosian would break up the cycle and then give the puck to Enstrom. And I think that had an impact. Whether it actually did or not, who knows? I know statistically at one point, I have no idea what it is at this point, but when I was looking at it before, Enstrom and Bogosian's numbers were basically right in the middle of where they were previously. Like, I can't remember what the actual numbers, but let's just say Bogosian was a 50% guy and Enstrom was a 54% guy, and then both of them were being 52 this year. So, I mean, that also kind of hints that maybe it was Bogosian. But, I mean, Enstrom's also older. I mean, you have to expect that step backs will start happening eventually.
Okay.
So,
yeah, no,
I'd say probably it's a mixture of things. I think it's in part to do with usage. It's in part that he's not with Byfuglien, who's like the best player he's been with. And I think part of it was that he was taking tough minutes with Zach Bogosian, who was arguably the Jets' fourth best defenseman.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, so back to a bit more stuff that I've actually told you we were going to talk about. So would you say, I think you'd agree with me saying that it wouldn't hurt the Jets, or it would probably be quite beneficial for Chevy to go out and get something before the trade deadline? Yeah. So if you had to pick if you had to pick a couple guys that you think Chevy should go for, who necessarily would you like to see the Jets add?
I haven't actually really researched this to a large extent at this point. I've done a little bit of like surface level looking.
Yeah.
But like obviously, when it comes to markets, the market on possession is cheaper than the market on point scorers.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I would suggest that, especially because losing Perreault kind of stunk. The Jets recently obtained Stafford. Stafford's a pretty decent scorer, but not the greatest possession player. Although, of course, that could be muddied by the fact that he played for Buffalo. But so I would definitely say off the bat, like the Jets, if they're being smart, money puck wise, they would go for more guys who drive the play as opposed to guys who score. Mm-hmm. Now, that's kind of making an assumption that the trade market value is the same as what we see for a free agency market.
Yeah.
Because like we already know, Eric Tulsky did some studies that basically the wins per dollar value that GMs get out of possession players is higher than the wins per value of point scorer players. So guessing that the trade value is probably similar, I would suggest for going for that. I mean, there's a lot of players that you could probably get both. I know you're going to love me saying Daniel Winnick as an option.
Oh, yeah.
And Sean Bergenheim's another one. Sorry, someone's trying to grab my attention. Sean Bergenheim's another one. Now, those are good options for 1 year. But the thing is, and this comes to why I'm like a little bit different than, for example, Ryan Arby, who's saying like Jets need to fix this, Jets need to fix this. Yeah, I think it's important for the Jets to like make the playoffs this year and for Chevy to make a move, because I think it's a good learning experience for the Jets. I think it's also shows Chevy's commitment to the team, to guys like Ladd and Byfuglien who will probably be signing soon. So I think for those reasons, it is nice to go for a move, but I would probably prefer a more long-term move because everyone knows that while the Jets could probably make more noise if all things go as well as they can in the playoffs than probably most media members think. I do think the Jets are a really good team. I think that they're probably the later end of a top 10 team when the roster was perfect. It's not so much right now.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So I think the Jets have they're a first round, second round team. And I think that learning experience is great. So might as well get some help there if you can. But for the most part, the Jets are looking to contend in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, their second line and third line centers are 21, 22. The Jets are more building for the long haul. And so if Chevy is making a move, I'd probably prefer moves. Like I recently wrote on 2 possible options. I've also forgot his first name. He plays for Columbus Blue Jackets, Calvert.
Yeah, Matt Calvert.
Yeah.
Matt Calvert. He's not as good as Winnick or Bergenheim.
But he's an RFA.
He's probably cheaper, and he's an RFA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same move that Chevy did when he got Michael Frolik. Now, of course, it kind of stunk that Michael Frolik was also only signed to 1 year, so the fact that Michael Frolik was an RFA that value kind of got lost. But I mean, the Jets already technically have 2 rentals on their team with Stafford and Frolik. Yeah. And so gaining more rentals, I mean, it's interesting that the people who are asking Chevy to do this, no matter what the cost pretty much, are the same people who got angry at Chevy for losing, weaker players like Setaguchi and Hainsey to free agency. The Jets already have 2 guys who probably will go to free agency this summer. I mean, if Michael Frolik was extending, probably would have happened by then. It doesn't mean it won't, but it probably would have happened.
I think a lot of... I know I'm kind of starting to get to that camp where it's time to start to face some music that Michael Frolik probably won't be a Winnipeg Jet next year. And as much as I don't like that, it is an interesting thought. Not to cut off your frame of thought right there, but do you think it would be worth trading for a leak at that point? If let's say someone was asking if the Jets were able to acquire something a bit bigger, like I don't know what could possibly be out there. It's a name that I don't think is out there right now, but would you be completely against the Jets trading for a leak if that was a possibility for someone with more term who's a decent possession guy?
I mean, if you're doing some sort of swap where it's more of like a multiple move, I mean, Chevy's done it previously. When Adia was going to UFA, Chevy traded Adia away, and he brought up Grant Clitsome. Grant Clitsome was a bit of a a lot of people weren't real big fans of him, but he did reasonably well. He was still a better defenseman than many of the other Jets defenders.
Mark Stewart.
Yeah. I wasn't going to point out any individuals.
Oh, I am going to point it
certain
out anytime.
unnamed defenseman for the Jets.
I mean, that was a move that, if we do something like that with Michael Frolik, trade him to one team because you're getting someone else who could take his role, and take his minutes and be somewhat sufficient, but also be a more long-term option than Frolik. I think that can be a great move. The big thing that you have to realize is that that's not really improving the team. Though the people who are asking for that, that's not really improving the team for now. I mean, I kind of called a couple of people out on it. I was like, there's a bunch of people who are saying Chevy needs to trade for someone. Chevy needs to trade for someone. And then also at different times of the day, we're also saying Chevy needs to trade for a league. Chevy needs to trade for a league. If you're getting one rental and then selling another rental, that's a lateral move.
Yeah.
And people have to...
Trying to get your cake and eat it too, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're moving for a league somehow to basically get a more long-term for a league because you don't think he's going to stay here, then fine, do that. But realize that that's not a move about today. That's a long-term move.
Especially when Perreault's out and you have Furley taking his minutes right now.
Yeah.
And then we get back to that whole discussion of what kind of damage are you really doing if you start having to, again, have Byfuglien replace Perreault's minutes and stuff like that. While we're on the topic of guys potentially getting moved and RFAs and whatnot, what are your thoughts on these rumors that Alex Burmistrov might be the guy? Hey, I have the exact same water bottle as you.
Really?
Yeah, that's the one I use for hockey.
Sweet.
What are your thoughts on Alex Burmistrov potentially getting moved without playing another game in the NHL or them really getting another look at him?
Well, I'll say right off the bat, there's probably a bit of bias in me. Less so than most people believe there to be. Everyone seems to think that Alexander Burmistrov is my favorite hockey player, just because I defended him a lot. But I defended him a lot because the same reason why I defended Evander Kane a lot.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that the amount of scrutiny that they were getting was unequal to the amount of impact in a negative sense that they're providing.
Yeah.
The reason why I liked Burmistrov is because we kind of went over this before. He represented kind of the more modern look at like Moneyball, Money Puck, that Alexander Burmistrov scored at a very low rate, and so because of that, a lot of people weren't big fans of them. I mean, people made excuses like why they didn't like him. Like, I don't like him carrying the puck, this or that, whatever. But for the most part, it was just because he didn't score.
Yeah. He
scored at a third-line rate. Ironically, he scored at a higher third-line rate than Adam Lowry is currently, who everyone loves. But anyways, that's a different battle. Who I actually love Adam Lowry too, to be honest.
Yeah, so do I. I got a huge man crush on Adam Lowry.
It's just kind of funny. At the exact same age, Burmistrov was just almost analytically identical to Adam Lowry, but a little bit better. And people are loving Adam Lowry and not liking Burmistrov.
Yep.
Burmistrov's Russianness and Burmistrov's size and the fact that he was an Atlanta draft pick has nothing to do with it.
No, of course not.
No,
not at all.
I liked Burmistrov because of the fact that he was a great possession player. He had one of the strongest relative possession numbers on the team. And for those who aren't big into stats, it basically means the Jets outchanced their opponents more so with him on the ice than they did with him on the bench. And that's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
That leads to wins, just like scoring leads to wins. Yeah, someone has to pot the puck in the net. And so that's why there's different jobs and different things for different people. But it has value. And the thing is, right now, scoring is expensive in the NHL. And we already kind of talked about this. Scoring is expensive in the NHL and possession isn't. The market's slowly starting to shift to make up for that. I mean, like Strawman got a big contract this year, and a couple other players like Benoit Pouliot. But for the most part, there's more value per dollar in possession than there is in scoring. And Burmistrov was that type of player where he had high possession, low scoring. Now, again, as I said before, in my opinion, the dollar market kind of gives you a good idea of how GMs value talent. And I'm sure that the trade market's not dissimilar than what they are willing to pay in dollars and pennies.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, that also means that Burmistrov's possession skills and poor dollar amounts means that his trade value is probably way lower than what his actual on-ice value is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest reason why I'm skeptical on it. And the other reason why I'm kind of skeptical on trading Burmistrov is because it's the opportunity cost of unknown. If you're buying a lottery ticket at a store, that danger of unknown is scarier than you finding a lottery ticket on the ground and just like, oh, sweet, lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what it is right now. Right now, there's I mean, I was talking to a couple of media members of Winnipeg when they were talking about trading Burmistr, and I was like, unknown is going to hurt his trade value. And I was saying, yeah, but that's also unknown whether he's going to come here and ever help the Jets. And I was like, well, it's not equal. The amount of the unknown for whether or not he's going to ever come to the Jets is smaller than what it will do in decreasing his value, which is already probably below his on-ice value, as we kind of already discussed. Because GMs are going to be scared. A GM's not going to want to buy an unknown. That's more threatening than Chevy just being like, okay, well, I have this free lottery ticket.
Yeah, it comes down to again asset management side of things, where another GM knows that they have to give something up for somebody who they know absolutely nothing about. Where the Jets at this point,
they already have him.
Yeah. They don't have to give anything up to get him. He's just gonna. I guess they used a draft pick way back when, but still, he's just kind of falling into their lap right now without them having to give absolutely anything up. So
yeah,
I'm in the same I'm in the same side as you. I believe that at this point in time, it's doing absolutely no damage. That if he is willing to show up in Winnipeg, to at least try him out and see what happens.
And that's the big thing is he willing to show up in Winnipeg?
Yeah, like who knows?
Yeah, and that's the counter argument. I mean, to be honest, I already that Burmistr is fine with it.
Yeah, it seems that way.
I mean, one, Burmistr is already, like, this is public, like, I knew through, basically, I'm going to say friends of friends, but the connection is a little bit closer than that, that Burmistr was still watching the Jets, and I can say that with confidence now, knowing that, like, I think he Instagrammed once.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I mean, he still watches the Jets. He still cheers for the Jets. So obviously, there's no bad blood on his side. I mean, all the rumors were that it was just Noel and Burmy. Now, that could not be true. I mean, you could end up with something like the Kane situation. Evander Kane is worth more than what the Jets traded for him. But at the same time, they weren't going to get that value from Kane. So trading him was like the right choice. I mean, who knows what's going on in the room? Maybe there is something going on. If that's the case, if the case is similar to Kane, then by all means, even though they'll lose value, there is the distinct possibility that trading Burmistr could be the right play.
Yeah.
But from what I know, I don't believe it to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry, I was just trying to find that picture.
That Instagram photo, yeah.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of them on his account from when he was here. I just can't see the one of him watching, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Anyways, so one last thing I'm going to ask you about before we kind of turn away from the whole stat side of things and just talk about a couple other things before our fun regular segments. What are your thoughts on the revamped NHL.com stats site? Because I know you're a guy that knows lots about them, and I know that it got, and I'll agree with this, it got a lot of criticism up front. I think people dove into it a bit more and took a bit of that criticism off. Then they had their press conference, and I think a lot of the analytics community got extremely infuriated because it didn't seem like they were going to give absolutely any credit to anybody. And then that kind of got fixed when they actually posted something giving credit to the people who deserve credit. But I know there's some issues that it does still have, so I guess the question for you is, again, what are your thoughts on the revamped NHL.com stats site now, and what you think it's going to be when they're done all four of these stages that they're doing?
As Bettman said, they traded a jalopy for a Lamborghini. And I think I actually didn't watch any of it, and I've barely been on the website. But Ben Wendorf, who was at one time the manager of Arctic Ice Hockey, tweeted out that quote, and I was like, in all honesty, it's more like they traded a jalopy for a 1990 Honda Accent or whatever. Like, it's a step in the right direction. Like, we have to be honest. It's a step in the right direction. I mean, it's a big win for the stats community, the fact that the NHL.com actually is going to care about these things. Totally. Especially because it means that due to the current rules, anything that's on that website can be used in arbitration. So that's a big deal. So it's a step in the right direction. Now, not a huge fan of the user interface.
Yeah, that's where my concerns start getting to be too.
It's not too terrible, but it's got a long way to go. But it's just starting, so I mean, you can't expect it to be great off the bat. I mean, I'm sure most people listening to this probably don't remember what the original Behind the Net was like, but I mean, it was nothing like what we have nowadays. We're kind of spoiled. It's going to take time. Things will get better. How much better? Who knows? How much information will be public? How much information won't be? I mean, for the most part, I'm not going to ever be using it. I mean, the numbers that are available there's already better available at the private sites.
Yeah.
By hobbyists. I mean, for example, we already know that's adjusting for differences in score situations because teams act differently when they're ahead by 2 points than when they're behind by 2 points. Those type of adjustments aren't available on the NHL, so there's no real reason for me to go use not as good data.
Even zone starts, I don't think you can adjust for on this site.
And it was games played was a big one too, right?
Games played and time on ice you can't adjust for right now.
So the guys who are the top for everything have only played one game and had 3 shifts, and they're all super high possession numbers or whatever.
And then Patrice Bergeron's stuck in the middle of it.
The guy who worked one shift and he was started in the offensive zone and then was told to get the hell off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, it's again, going back to what you're saying, it's a good step. I think it's a good step, but also not including those things might turn a lot of people off to it instantly, because I feel like a lot of people are going to go maybe for the very, very first time and are going to go look at these stats and be like, okay, what does this mean that a bunch of people that have nothing to do with anything are all at the top? So I don't know if that's going to turn people off to it instantly.
It's a fine line between trying to put just the right amount so that you don't scare people away with the complexity and trying to
make it so that people who actually know what's going on want to use.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think that they're doing it well in releasing it in stages in that respect. But who knows how good the final stage is going to be? That's the main thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Garrett.
Oh, I'm really interested to see, because right now they're only rolling in things that we've already had.
Yeah.
And SAP, the company that's working with NHL, is planning on rolling things that we don't currently have. Especially once they start getting the puck tracking with the chips and the player tracking, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens. I mean, do you know who Mike Kelly is? Of TSN.
Heard the name, but I've also heard of the Bombers' old coach, so I know multiple Mike Kellys. Sure.
He used to be called the TSN stats guy.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was the one with the great old quote: "The things that Colorado do makes them a 107 PDO team."
Lovely.
Which I like retweeting every once in a while just for fun. I haven't saved.
Oh, I've seen that come up on my timeline a few times from you.
Yeah. So earlier he was kind of talking about Corsi is not possession, and
I saw that. That was weird.
And he's and once we get real possession, things will be better. I kind of called him on it, and I said, "How do you know it's going to be better? Do you want to make a bet?" And to be honest with you, I made that bet with insider knowledge, already knowing from other people who have actually gotten that data before that possession isn't better. And it's not really surprising. I mean, they already do real possession versus soccer analytics isn't too different than hockey analytics.
It's a very similar sport in those aspects.
Yeah. Except it's a little bit different. There's a lot more dead possession time where nothing's really going on other than guys passing back and forth. And so dead possession already counts as a larger impact, but possession is pretty much meaningless in the NHL in soccer. And in my opinion, it was always my opinion that hockey was going to be somewhat the same, where there's a lot of dead zone possession, not as bad. And then I got to talk to some people who used to work for the company Power Scout, who actually did test those things. And Yeah, it turns out that Corsi is still better because of the fact that Corsi represents people who are making the most out of their possession, and they're creating chances and shots.
It's kind of like
And
that practice doesn't make perfect, good practice makes perfect, and this sort of thing was like possession doesn't make you win, good possession's what's going to make you win.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I kind of threw him on a bet on that, and he kind of tried to change the topic and turn it away from me. It was kind of funny. So yeah.
I think before at this point in time, I think I'm on the same thing as you. Like, I'm going to still use War and Ice. I'm still going to use Hockey Stat. Like, I'm going to use the sites that I've been using before. But I'm not going to completely cast off the NHL.com stuff until I've seen all 4 of these phases all rolled out and how it's all going to work together. Because stuff like the like goal locations on goalies and being able to compare goal locations and stuff like that I know they had some pictures of and stuff like that. That stuff I think is going to be really cool. And I think you can. I listen. Go ahead.
I'm a little worried on it though too, because there's an issue. There's an issue with the fact that hockey's already a high variance sport, and I haven't written on this, and I've been meaning to for about 6 months now. It has to do with Bourne and his shot quality project.
Yeah.
The big issue with hockey, because of the fact that goals are so rare, is anytime you split data into smaller samples, it creates a larger impact by variance and outliers.
Yeah.
And so you start making assumptions. I mean, even when you look at something that's as common as Corsi, I mean, Corsi is a way, way, way higher event statistic, which is why it outperforms goals. That's the only reason why it outperforms goals, because goals have more meaning per a single shot than a single, Corsi event does, but just because they're so often. And yet, when you look at wowies, which are like when you split, how does this player perform with this guy and this perform with that guy, you already start to see a lot of those impacts. It's like, okay, those 2 players are good. I know they're good. Why is their wowie really bad? Well, it's because the sample's being cut. And, I mean, there's a lot that goes on in small samples.
I think it was, what's his name? Who is it that on Twitter that... one of the creators, he tweeted that out basically, and just a general reminders. The more you split things, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's along the lines. The more you split data and stuff like that, the iffier and whatnot it gets. It's the same thing when you're doing any kind of research or statistical analysis, which I'm sure you know, is the more you start really messing with stuff and start playing with it and start throwing different tools and tests and stuff in it, the more likely you're going to find something that works because you've messed with it so much. So
and I mean, he's a smart guy. Like, AC Thomas is, he's been a statistical professor for a long time for a lot of high-end universities.
Yeah. I
mean, he's right now consulting for the Oakland A's. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, that's right on the dot. I mean, there's a saying that a statistical model should be only as complex as it needs to be, no more. And I mean, that's the one problem that I'm a little worried about, especially with goaltender stuff. Like, I mean, the whole shot quality project that's been going on with shot location, stuff like that. People forget that Gabriel Desjardins proved 10 years ago that shot location matters on whether or not puck's going to go in. The problem that we always found was that teams and players don't really have a long-term impact over it.
Yeah, you can't really replicate it over and over.
And now we're going through the whole system all over again. So it's just kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of the argument as to why people keep saying, again, that whole Corsi is dead argument in another aspect, in my opinion, is people are going to keep arguing these things. And now that the mainstream media, and I can't remember who it was who brought this. It might have been, I can't remember who brought this up, but they brought up the point that now we're letting all of these people who have absolutely no statistical background and are been fighting against this for however long get their hands all over all of this. And she, or I can't remember if it was her who brought it up, but Kara, who from covers the Coyotes.
I didn't see that, but that's right on point.
Yeah, she brought up the point that was pretty much that now we're letting a lot of people who don't really know what this is have their hands on it and just go wild with it. And
who knows how they're going to manipulate it.
Yeah, it's a lot of... I think people are going to have to be even more careful. And it's the same thing, again, doing my master's degree. You have to be very careful. Not only is something getting released out there, but who's releasing it? What are they using to actually do it? And right now, a lot of the people that are using these stats are people that... It's people you can usually pretty easily identify as the ones who know what they're doing and stuff like that. Like, when something comes from you, people can trust you with it because they know you know what you're doing. When people... I trust you with it, so don't ruin my dreams here, Garrett.
Just to warn you, I'm coming out with an article tomorrow on Hockey Graph saying I screwed up.
Oh, lovely. Oh, no, yeah, you showed... I saw you tweet something about that. You made a mistake somewhere.
Yeah,
but that's just it. Like, we know that if there are mistakes made, it's actually going to be addressed and brought out and brought forward, where we've seen a lot of the time, and not to throw a lot of mainstream guys in the mud, but there are guys out there who make these mistakes and just pretend that they never made a mistake, or they try to back up their mistake. And it's one of those things that, yeah, this is great to have out there and it's awesome, but just be careful where your sources and information are coming from, because there are things out there.
Mine was only a copy and paste mistake. I was putting the data for like first liners, second liners, third liners, fourth liners, first pair defenseman, second pair defenseman, third pair defenseman. And what I actually did was the forwards, and then on the right side, I did first pair defensemen, second line forwards, third line forwards.
Ah, lovely.
No one noticed that the line number 2 and line number 3 for both sides were exactly the same. And like that, it's a year-old article, and
no one's brought it up.
And it was pretty popular one. Like I looked at the analytics, the Google Analytics, and they had like something like 70 tweets on Twitter about it.
Oh, lovely.
People tweeting out the link to the article. So.
Oh boy.
Okay, well, we'll redirect away from Garrett's mistake.
Yep.
So address it and then laugh at him tomorrow when this article when he posts his little mistake article. We're going to talk about another little side tidbit thing, and then we're going to get into the spelling bee, because I think and maybe we'll do the great team of the week as well before we let Garrett go, because the things we learned, I think we got to throw things on the screen, and that might mess up with our connection with Garrett. So we'll do that last. Just briefly, I want to bring up that article from ESPN that everybody's crying about and everyone's talking about for some stupid reason, even though I think we all already knew this, about players not wanting to go to places. Apparently these are the cities that most often show up on the no trade lists of players and whatnot. So I just to clarify, the guys who are getting asked for these no trade lists for the most part are going to be guys who are highly valued pieces, usually at trade deadlines, or they're being asked to move their contracts. So odds are it's teams that are tanking that are doing this, in my opinion, or I would assume coming from is going to be teams that aren't doing very well, or players that are looking to go somewhere to win. Note how Edmonton, Winnipeg, Buffalo, Ottawa, Toronto, Florida, Arizona, teams that don't win traditionally are all on that list at the top 7. So personally, I just don't really take any value in this. I know that people probably don't want to come here because the Jets don't win a lot. Sure, they cited taxes and weather being issues. Fine.
Well, whatever. I mean, put yourself in the situation of a guy who's maybe played in the States his whole life. Let's say he played in California his whole life. Would you want to move to Winnipeg? Like, necessarily? Unless they had an amazing team, unless there's, like, Stanley Cup contenders, and
Detroit.
This is my only chance to win, then yeah, sure.
We talked about this before.
Winnipeg. Yeah.
Who wants to move to Detroit?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. How do they draw people? I don't know, maybe because they win.
Exactly. Garrett, I know you had some interesting thoughts on this that we were going to talk about before we started recording, but we decided to hold off. What did you want to say about this?
Well, you kind of already hit on it. Like, it's not like this was out a survey of people with their non-trade lists. Not every player has non-trade lists. There's only certain players have those things. It's the top end players. The top end, like, what makes a player like go to a location? It's a combination of money. It's a combination of will they win or not. It's a combination of how they feel that they'll fit in with the team, both like with what people are there, both on the team and management. Also, like, what their role will be. I mean, like, for example, big reason why Perreault came over to Winnipeg is because he was told he's going to get a lot more minutes and power play time than he's ever had before in his career. I mean, these are the things that matter, and also the living environment. I mean, a lot of the guys that have no trade clauses aren't the people who are coming into the league. They're the older guys who have families, have kids. There's reasons why like these people have these things. I mean, I love Winnipeg. I'm from Winnipeg. I don't live there anymore, but I'm from there. And but it just seemed that there's a very vocal, how much of it is a minority, how much of it's a majority, who knows. They seem to get super defensive whenever anything goes against Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And like people could say you just noticed that because of whatever, but most of my followers are from Winnipeg, but I don't actually follow that many people from Winnipeg. I live in Vancouver, so I'm getting access to how other people view things. If people insult Vancouver, I usually just laugh and agree.
Well, it's the same thing. Like, that's how I treat it with Winnipeg too. It's like, hey, why are you being so crazy about it? Like, yeah, it's cold here.
Yeah, believe it or not, Winnipeg is cold, which makes it less attractive than a place that's not cold. Winnipeg has some things. I mean, like, people were, like, tweeting out, like, oh, Winnipeg has, like, theater and, like, all these things. And yes, Winnipeg has that. Some places have some things, some places have other things. And believe it or not, different people have different wants of what they want.
Let's be honest here. Somebody tweeted this out, and I thought it was the most on-point, accurate thought I've ever seen about someone talking about Winnipeg. And someone was arguing about, oh, we have these theater and this arts and all this stuff. And it's like, hold on for a second here. You're complaining that hockey players who probably didn't get a university education, who got a lot of money when they were really young, who've been into sports their entire life, aren't that interested in theater and arts and music? Wow, mind blowing.
Why don't they want to come to Winnipeg? They could go to Folklorama.
Yeah, like, let's be honest here. That's not necessarily what's going to draw a lot of these guys in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It wouldn't draw me in.
No, like,
I mean, let's be honest. If I was a free agent, I mean, the Human Rights Museum. Like, come on.
Everybody wants to come see that, right?
I'm going for that.
Yeah.
Hey, I would love to go there. It wouldn't make me move to Winnipeg.
No.
Exactly. Like, to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't want to move to Winnipeg if I wasn't born and raised here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's reasons for why we're all here, and we know what we like and don't like. And I think the biggest seller for Winnipeg is when people grow up here and they always... All I ever hear is, oh, when you leave, you never feel the same. I don't know if that's true for you. I don't know how old you were when you left Winnipeg. But all I ever hear people say is, oh, people leave here and they just want that community feel again. Yeah. And that's why they come back.
What was that joke they made on The Simpsons? Like, welcome to Winnipeg. We were born here. What's your excuse?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a welcome to Winnipeg sign, yeah.
Whatever. So what that guys like Evander Kane don't like the fishbowl that is Winnipeg. Like, I really don't care.
And you know what? That little Kane situation is the exact same thing. How many people are like, I mean, I'm not going to point out names, but there's some really obvious ones on Twitter who got overly defensive because Kane doesn't want to be here, and so therefore he's a bad player. It's like, oh, no, Kane didn't want to be there. He's a good player, but he didn't want to be there, so he didn't want to be there. The end.
You don't know the whole story regardless, and... Again, same thing with Burmese. We don't know the whole story. You know more of it than I do, Garrett. But yeah, like
I know more about it than I'm allowed to tell.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about a lot of different things that people like to make their assumptions.
And I don't know everything about for the Burmese situation. I mean, like my whole view from what I have been told could be completely wrong because there is pieces missing in the puzzle. I mean, nobody knows really anything, but like. At all. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah. I just find it interesting when people complain about stuff like that. It's nuts. Okay, so...
Sorry, moving closer.
That's all good. Let's
His face
switch up
is
our
huge.
Massive.
Neil, what time are we at right now? How long have we...
An hour on the dot.
Wow, we're an hour right now. Right. Okay, perfect. We'll get into our final three things. Let's do the spelling bee first. Okay. Let Garrett attempt to spell some things, and
sure.
We'll go from there. Neil, want to drop some music for us?
Of course.
It's the SPELLING.
I just want to do better than Garrett today. That's my goal.
It's not hard.
I think since we started, it's been maybe 50 spelling bees.
Yeah, probably.
I think I might be 1 or 2 out of 50.
I think you've gotten 2, yeah. Anyways, today I'm doing a bargain basement version because my computer died. So it's going on the phone. Spelling bee for today.
Why aren't you charging that thing?
I don't know. I use it once a week, so I don't think about it. Whatever. Beside the point. Spelling bee for today. We actually talked about him earlier in the podcast. Sean Bergenheim.
Ah, perfect.
So that's why I said you guys might have a better
Yo,
chance.
this first name's not a given.
Well,
for me
that's the
right
thing is you never know. There's a couple different ways you can spell Sean, and you gotta choose wisely.
Yeah, this is.
But I had a feeling that both Garrett and Travis, since he's been talked about a lot lately in the media with the trade speculation and whatever, I feel like you guys are gonna be okay, but we'll see.
Yeah,
now. Bergenheim?
Yes.
No, okay.
I'm quite all right on this one.
I figured, yeah. Are you
Garrett,
feeling
you will be
confident?
judged
Are you
if
feeling
you-
confident, Garrett?
It's kind of unfair. I've already written articles on them.
Yeah. See, that's
Oh,
what
yeah,
I
so that's the
figured.
thing with me. Like,
Yeah.
I either tweet about them so much or I write articles on them before,
I had
so
a
that I
feeling.
know most of these.
I had a feeling that was gonna happen.
Okay, well then everyone can laugh at my spelling.
Okay.
Sean, S-E-A-N.
Attaboy, Neil.
Yeah! I
Nailed
didn't
it.
think there was many SHs in the NHL. I'm not sure why. Bergenheim. Not sure if it was an E or a U, but I went with the E.
Okay.
B-E-R-G-A-N-H-E-I-M.
Oh, you were
Man.
so close.
Oh!
That's-
You were one letter
Yeah,
off.
you were
Neil.
one letter off.
Was it the E or the U?
It's the no. You had the E right, B-E-R-G, but it's B-E-R-G-E, not B-E-R-G-A. So,
Bergen.
I already spoiled. I figured you guys were gonna get it right. So
Yeah, so Sean Bergenheim, S-E-A-N. Bergenheim is B-E-R-G-E-N-H-E-I-M.
correct.
I'll get there one day.
Garrett, you had that, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I've written it a lot of times in the last 2 weeks. So.
And always remember, I before E, except after H in Bergenheim.
Yeah. So, English is stupid.
Yes.
Always remember that.
Well, Bergenheim isn't
He's-
English.
Yeah,
that's
he's
why.
not. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
He's
Damn it.
he's something else. He's
See, well, there you go, Neil. I'm even worse than
well,
you
his
right
wife's his wife's name is Vilma, so
Nice.
so I'm assuming he's not. It's not an English type name.
Next week, Vilma
He's Finnish.
Bergenheim.
Hey, he's Finnish. There you go.
There you go. You fit in perfectly. Oh, speaking of
Was that a
Finnish
pun?
things,
I don't know.
what are you saying, Neil?
Not really. Keep going.
Anyways,
I haven't spoke for a while.
according to Leo Komarov back in the day, Finnish people love Winnipeg. So
All right.
there you go.
Is there a big Finnish community?
We'll
in
take
Winnipeg?
it.
I don't know.
Well, I think when Komarov was a free agent, he said something along the lines of he'd like to come to Winnipeg because it reminds him of Finland or something like that.
Oh,
so
all right, sure.
I don't know what that connection is. I don't know if Timu had a big effect on that. Speaking of people who are not from Winnipeg, we have a fan from Denmark.
Oh yeah, shout out to Casper.
Casper.
Yeah.
Oh,
His name is
holy
Casper.
Casper.
Sorry, Garrett, you're stuck around for us ranting a little bit here.
Well,
And-
this is cool though. Kind of. Well, to me it is, anyways.
Okay, hold on.
Garrett might not care, but I think it's cool.
We got an email from Casper Larson. Greetings from Denmark. So he heard us talking about how we had a listener in New York, and he's like, well, I think I have that person beat
Yeah.
from Denmark.
No kidding.
Nice.
Apparently,
Across the pond.
yeah. Garrett, you might actually find this bit interesting. Blah, blah, blah. I'm, of course, clearly on the Nick Ehlers bandwagon. The NHL fan community in Denmark is really small, but some of us follow our guys pretty intently. The thread about Ehlers on the very small Denmark section on the Hockey Future message board started in early 2011 when he was 14, so it was pretty exciting for us to finally see him drafted.
Cool.
It's been a great year, and yeah, he keeps talking about that lovely stuff. So thank you for reaching out to us, Casper. It was greatly appreciated. Sorry I didn't respond to your email. I've had a heck of a busy week. But yeah, we appreciate you listening. And if anybody else from across the pond is listening, or any other people from, is it? What are
Can we
people
talk
from-
about Nick Ehlers and how awesome he is?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
why
on.
not?
How awesome is Nick Ehlers, Garrett?
Since we have you here.
For Casper.
Well, Nick Ehlers already set a record for Halifax in most games in a row with points, and he's still the streak is still alive.
It's
I think he's
30
already
right
at
now?
31 or 32 games.
I think it's 30, yeah,
Jesus.
31 or 32. I remember when it was he was at like 24 and Jonathan Drouin was 28 was the record or something. And everybody's
Yeah.
like, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? And now he's just killed it.
Yeah, and then like on top of it, he's just killing it in the queue. There's not too many comparables. Like I run a lot of stats where I compare how players perform relative to their age and the scoring rates of their team in the league. And to put it bluntly, Ehlers is far exceeding his draft position.
Yeah.
And it's really good. And everyone should say thank you to Vancouver for drafting Jake Virtanen over Nick Ehlers.
Oh, I know you're calling somebody out in specific there. So thank you, Vancouver.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, we're gonna let Garret go really quick. So for everybody listening, this is gonna be like a 2 millisecond pause, and then we'll be back. But before you go, Garret, thank you again for coming on. You can get a hold of Garret on Twitter at Garret Hohl, GarretHohl, Garret OHL.
First, who made that account? Somebody made a Gareth of the OHL account. Do you know who that was?
You know, the funny thing is, Reese Jessop, the guy he runs Canucks Army.
Yeah.
And he also he's the guy that's offside on Twitter.
Yeah.
And he's the other guy that does the podcast with me for Hockey Graphs. He was always planning on doing that. And someone beat him.
But it wasn't him, or
It was him.
oh wow.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I thought it was you, and I was like, "Oh, he's accepting it. That's hilarious."
Yeah, I
But
thought
it
you
wasn't
actually
you.
changed your handle because it's the same picture and everything.
Yeah,
And then you changed your picture on Twitter, and it messed everything up.
Yeah.
The person stopped messaging too, so I was like so disappointed. I'm like, I never get the really good parody account.
No, that's a good one.
Ryan.
Yeah,
It's always Ryan.
Ryan always gets the good parody
Yeah.
accounts.
No, Gareth of the OHL. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That had so much potential.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it did.
They just stopped.
You should
I
like
wish it
get them to give it to somebody that's gonna actually have fun with it.
If that person's listening right now, give me that account so I can give it to someone new.
Yeah.
Either that or pick up your game, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick it up.
Oh man. That's
All right. Thanks again, Garret. Get a hold of Garret on Twitter. Check out Hockey Graphs. Is it hockeygraphs.com?
Hockey-graphs.com.
Yeah, and check out the hockey. Is your podcast going on iTunes anytime soon? By the way.
Yeah, about 4 weeks ago, I asked Neil for advice on how to do that, and he gave it to me, and I haven't acted upon it.
Do it, Garret, because I need a podcast to appear on my phone if I'm going to listen to it regularly, and I sit there and I'm like, I got nothing to do, and then it's like, oh, Hockey Graphs.
I listen to it whenever I see it, a link tweeted out like from you or something, and then I'll go and click on it and listen. But if it's not like popping up on my phone, that makes it way easier.
If it's not in front of my face, it's not happening easily.
Yeah,
so get it on iTunes, Garret.
Sorry.
Get it, and then we will promote it because it's surely an amazing thing. So yeah, thanks again, Garret.
It's such a bad podcast. What are you talking
I enjoyed
It's
it.
good
I've listened to
content.
probably 2 episodes or 3 episodes, and I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah. Garret, have you listened
right.
to our first few episodes?
Yeah.
I don't know. I started listening quite late, actually.
Yeah, let's go listen to our first one and just laugh.
Or
'cause it's
don't.
awful.
You guys are at like what 140 now or something like that?
No, we're at 64.
This is
Or
60.
no, sorry, 60. Really?
Yeah,
No,
that's
I thought
it.
you were like higher than that.
No, we're only
'Cause I
64.
Wow, I thought I was like, oof. I thought I'd been following for longer than that because I was like, I started around 40, 30 something.
Probably
And-
when we jumped ship to Arctic Ice, I'm assuming.
Yeah, around then because it was like always on the website that I was always on, so it was easy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See, easy,
See how,
easy.
yeah.
See?
You gotta make it
It helps.
You gotta make it accessible.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Garret. We'll let you go. We're going to pause the show right now. All right, we are back. We just have a couple things left to do before we take off today. So let's start with Joe. I think we've got a great team to talk
Yes, we do have a great team.
Do you have that, or
I thought
is
we were
your,
gonna learn something. It's
Yeah.
okay. Let's
no,
go.
I do have.
Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, it's Joe's great team of the week.
So great team of the week for this week. It's going to go to the Washington Capitals.
I was watching them play earlier.
Yeah, every time. Well, I have bad memories of the Washington Capitals because it was the first Jets game I ever went to, and they got pumped. And yeah, it was just bad. And then they got beat by the Caps again recently, and
I think we talked about this before. That was my first Jets game too.
yeah,
Capitals.
yeah.
Yep.
It was just bad. Anyways, they're doing well for themselves. They've won 5 of their last 7, sitting fairly safely in 6th in the East because the 7th and 8th, well, actually, basically the 8th spot is like a bunch of points below 7th and 6th. But it looks like they're pretty set. Obviously, can't really say for sure, but they're looking pretty good there. Ovechkin's almost at 40 goals already, which is ridiculous. He's at 39, I believe, or 38.
Which absolutely nobody's talking about.
No, nobody cares. But Travis is plus minus.
So what's
No,
the,
seriously though. Okay, hold on.
what's
Keep
the
talking about it.
pace?
Sorry?
What's his pace then?
Well, how many games are left?
20-ish?
20-ish? I'm sure he's on a 50-something.
Probably. Okay. If you go and look, okay, league leaders here. Hold on, I'm doing this literally right now.
He is the league leader in goals, by the way.
Yes, he's league leader in goals right now at 38. I want to talk about the league leaders for a second here in just points by himself, and I want to point something out. Steve Dangle's podcast kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I want to point this out for a second. Think of guys, who are some guys that have been trashed in the media, they're dicks, they are selfish, they're crap, blah, blah, blah.
Kessel.
Every year that they just didn't perform once, listen to this top like 10 here. Patrick Kane.
Okay, yeah.
Was a piece of shit in Chicago. Did beat up a cab driver in Buffalo. Justifiable. Nick Backstrom, ridiculously underrated. No one ever talks about him because he plays beside Ovechkin. Jakub Voracek. Yeah, whatever.
Nobody really said anything.
Then you have John Tavares. Fine. King of the world. Alex Ovechkin. Torn to shreds on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Vladimir Tarasenko. No one talks about him because he plays in the Central. Tyler Seguin. Terrible piece of shit out of Boston. He's such a bad guy. Then you have Sidney Crosby. Rick Nash, who apparently is just a piece of crap. He's so bad. He doesn't care anymore. He's useless. Blah, 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 just ripped to absolute shreds. Like, why is none of these guys are being talked about right now?
No.
Because they're just doing what they do. It's so it's unfair. Very unfair.
Ovechkin's he's such a specific type of player that I can see why people would love to hate him. I mean, you watch him on the power play, and to me, it's amazing how he plays the game. He plays in such a way that's so different than anybody else. It's like he's playing on the outdoor rink, like with his buddies or whatever. But he's so specialized in what he does that it almost makes him look lazy because he's just like, I know what works for me. I'm not going to do any of that other stuff.
Yep.
Right? And that
I don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to do that kind of other stuff, which can bother some people. But to me, I just find it amazing. Like watching him, you watch like an ISO cam of him on the power play. He literally just stands there. He doesn't move.
He stands there and waits for the guys to take a step off
of him.
Yeah, cool.
He goes to his spot and he stays there. And all he does, and there's actually a really good.
He doesn't do too much.
No, exactly. He doesn't do too much. There's a great GIF of him from a goal that Backstrom scored.
I saw
where Backstrom comes in. Yeah, Backstrom comes in on the right point, looks over to Ovechkin. Ovechkin holds his stick out to point towards the net, as in like, no, don't pass to me, go to the net. So Backstrom turns, goes to the net, shoots, scores. Ovechkin celebrates.
Goes crazy.
The entire time, didn't move his feet once.
Yeah.
And
until he sellies.
Yeah, until he sellies, and then he runs in and celebrates with everybody. But he's just like, I don't know, I find him amazing in that respect, that he can put up, he's almost at 40 goals right now with 20 games left in the season, and...
He's at 38 goals right now with 61 games played.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He's...
Guess what his plus-minus is right now?
I think I've heard some stuff lately about the fact that people are amazed that he's been a plus.
He's a plus 12.
Yeah, there you go.
No one's talking about it.
Nobody cares.
Nobody. Guess how many times in his career he's been a minus?
I don't know, probably three.
He's played
three times?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons in the NHL.
Okay, I'll say 4 seasons at minus. 3 seasons at minus.
3. Yeah. Okay. 3 seasons as a minus.
Yeah, and so obviously
one year it was bad. Everybody's just all over.
He doesn't play defensively. Well, there's that classic GIF of the controller disconnected, which is
hilarious.
Yeah. When you're playing NHL and your controller disconnects or whatever, and it's just Alex Ovechkin not back checking, and he just glides in as a guy scores a goal, and he just glides into the camera with his hands by his side, which obviously looks bad, but
he was. People don't appreciate Alex Ovechkin for what he is. Listen to these point totals: 106 points, 92, 112, 110, 109, 85, 65, 56 in the shortened season.
Yeah.
79, 61 right now.
Wow.
That's crazy.
He's a hell of a hockey player.
He's 875 points in 740 games played.
Nice.
He's a fucking amazing hockey player.
Yeah. Future Hall of Famer.
Damn well better be.
Yep.
I think he's going to be one of those guys that when he retires, people are going to be like, wow, he was really freaking good.
And
we did not appreciate that.
Nope, not even close.
All right, we learned some things, I think. Joe, do you want to go first with that as well?
I didn't learn anything.
You didn't learn anything?
Nope.
I got one for him.
Okay.
Because I learned 2 things.
Okay, perfect.
I saw this on the front page of Reddit today. I couldn't believe it. More people are bitten each year by New Yorkers than sharks.
Nice.
What?
Right?
That is incredibly random, but hilarious.
So don't be afraid of sharks. Be afraid of New Yorkers.
Yeah, just don't go to New York. You can go swim in the ocean all you want, but don't go to New York.
Don't swim by someone from New York.
Yeah. Don't swim in the ocean with someone from New York.
Yo, New York listeners, what is up with that?
Yeah. No
Why
doubt.
are you biting people?
The second thing I learned is how nice Canadian kids are. So these are two pair of Canadian kids trying to share a puck, and they're like, I don't want it.
No,
you can have it, man. And he's like, nah, I don't even want it, man. You can have this. Now you take it. No, it's fine. It's okay. You take it.
Yeah.
I thought this was adorable.
That's great.
That's hilarious.
It's a good moment.
It's such silly kids.
That's actually hilarious.
Classic.
I'm assuming it's a puck that like maybe went over the
Or somebody
Oh, for
tossed
sure.
it to them.
something like that. Okay, and then Travis, this is something that you learned.
I learned that Pecorine is insane.
Oh,
Watch
yeah,
his
it's-
sequence of saves.
Crazy.
I couldn't believe it when I saw this for the first time. Just stone cold.
Like, what?
Just flopping around.
Let's watch this again.
Boom.
Save.
Oh,
Save.
that's a huge save right
Boom.
there.
Save.
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
second
goodness.
one though.
Save again. Comes out in front. Save.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what?
Is that's Ovechkin too, isn't it?
No, that's the San Jose
Oh,
Sharks.
okay.
So he was stopping on that. I think it was Couture, Pavelski.
1, 2,
Yeah, that
Thornton.
second one's
3,
ridiculous.
4, 5.
Is that still live? I was gonna ask that last one.
I don't know if that last one was still live or not, but regardless, he made the save, so who cares?
He did it anyway. He's like, "Fuck you!"
I'm not giving you guys any chance to complain.
It's like when
about this.
basketball players swat the ball after the whistle blows.
Yeah.
Like you're not seeing it go in the net. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. So Pecorine is a far superior goaltender to what the Jets have right now.
Yeah, than
because-
what most teams have.
Yeah. God, he's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try to remember to tweet that out later, but that was...
Is that mustard yellow they're wearing?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Miss Yoki won't like that very
No,
much.
not at all.
So yeah, I think that's about it for us this week. I guess we also did learn that we have a listener in Denmark, so
Yeah, but you sure that.
yeah, break it down. Well, thank you again to Gareth of the OHL for coming on the podcast. Just saying, guys, whenever you're talking to Garrett on Twitter, he absolutely loves it when you throw an extra T on his name. Okay?
How about one R?
One R and an extra T, he loves it when you spell his name like that, okay? He made a mistake in his Twitter handle. It's actually spelled, like, his actual name is spelled Garett. So please, you're tweeting at him and thanking him for coming on the JetStream pod. At JetStream pod, hashtag JetStream. Be sure to spell his name with an extra T and one less R, because he loves it. But if you want to follow Garrett on Twitter, it's at GARRETHOHL. Like I said, check out the podcast on Twitter at JetStreamPod, hashtag JetStream. Check out our website, www.jetstreampodcast.com. We're getting better numbers for our stats from who's actually listening to us, and it's great for everything, guys, so we greatly appreciate it. If you want to help us get even more notice, subscribe and rate us on iTunes, please. It's always appreciated. Tell your friends about us, get them to download as well. Thank you to all you guys on Max Sports channels and Stitcher and SoundCloud, but we'd really appreciate it if you also subscribe on iTunes. So just go search Winnipeg Jets in the bar. We made sure that actually works now.
Yeah.
So search Winnipeg Jets in the podcast app or on iTunes on your computer, and you will find us easily.
We should do something special for every review or rating.
We'll have to figure that out. It's
Something
so hard
hilarious.
to take them back to who did what.
That's so true.
I don't know. Copy and paste your review to us and email it to us, jetstreampodcast@gmail.com, and we'll find something to do about it. I don't know. Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of us individually on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at THRUBENIUK. Joe's on Twitter at JW_Clark20. Neil's at Neil Noonan. Check out ArcticIceHockey.com for our posts and everything like that and all our links. Thank you everybody for listening. We're out of here.